Just because of WoW title? Well, there's a WoW title because someone leaked. Someone leaked some Classic Plus stuff. It's an alleged leak. TLDR, alleged leak. But it's, I think, a really good, if it's not real, insanely good bait. It's just a good discussion. To be honest, outside of maybe a couple of things, it feels pretty real. New class doesn't seem real to me. Yeah, I said the same thing in Discord. Spellblade was stuck out to me. Not even a good shit post. It's actually good though. Okay, there's some good things in this. It's not all good, but I'm curious what you guys think. Okay, so we'll just get into it. The first thing on the leak, which isn't really a leak, I think this was obvious. There will be no WoD Classic, according to this. Not a surprise. MoP will become permanent era servers with the ability to transfer to retail. I actually think this is real. I really do. I always thought that Classic would merge with retail at some point at the end of it. This like Classic line, I think, was to see how far it worked. Number 2, Anniversary Realms. TBC soon, of course. This is, I mean, we know this. TBC probably, if I had to guess, you didn't think they do permanent MoP servers? Yeah, I mean, MoP permanent era servers, I feel like they have to offer some sort of progressed era server. It doesn't make sense just to close MoP forever, does it? Because MoP private servers actually do really well. It seems crazy this is predicting nothing new for at least a year in Classic Plus in 2 years. I think that's correct. I 100% think, so we'll get to that, but TBC soon, we'll go up to Wrath of the Lich King before becoming a permanent Wrath era realm. I think I would like there to be a TBC realm as well, and then we can just have a realm for Kata, TBC, Wrath, and MoP. But that's a lot of versions, and not sure if that's realistic. TBC servers go hard, but they do have a life cycle. Like, I think having a 2.4.3 fully progressed TBC server is fun, but like, for how long? I think it would die off really quick. I feel like if they dumped MoP Classic characters in retail, they'd have to open up the floodgates and let people get all the stuff they've removed over the years. Either that or people cry about how they missed out on getting it a second time. I kind of disagree. I don't think Blizzard cares that much about collectors in that sense. I feel like Blizzard cares more about letting the people who did get the stuff and did play Classic transfer their achievements over. I think it's actually possible that MoP just closes and your characters de facto from MoP Classic to retail on a midnight patch. The end goal is to funnel Classic players into retail. That's kind of what I'm saying. How credible is 4chan usually with leaks? So the way I read this, I actually think this is a real leak. I actually think it's real, but I think it's obfuscated by really early ideas. So like things like new Spellblade class, for example, could have been a proposed idea, but not a confirmed piece of content, right? So I think this is something like somebody heard from someone about Classic Plus and then leaked. Not necessarily like a fully credible source, like everything is true. Same thing with like neutral Blood Elves, I don't know. But let's not worry about this being real, guys. The whole point of this is a review of a supposed leak, right? This is a leak. We don't know how true it is, but we get to talk about it. We could think Classic Plus because that's very interesting to me. I do want Classic Plus to be successful, and I think this, like, talking about this kind of stuff is cool. TBC Hardcore, I don't think works, but here's the big but. I think Blizzard would be willing to put up a server that's TBC Hardcore. It doesn't cost anything. Like, it could be a small server. So I could see this being a possibility with TBC Hardcore, but it's very questionable. Like, I think TBC Hardcore would basically just be a leveling thing and not seen as like a raid. I don't think TBC Hardcore is a raid viable expansion. You cannot transfer from Doomhowl to the server. Doomhowl will join Classic Era. Guys, how do you feel about that? I kind of like the idea of Doomhowl not progressing to a TBC server because as much as I would want my TBC characters, I feel like TBC Hardcore could be an opportunity for an OnlyFangs 2, OnlyFangs 3. So I think that Blizzard would only do this to get the free publicity from a streamer event. Doomhowl should stay on its on-era server. Yeah, like it needs to go, like, they just moved Doomhowl from the section of Anniversary Realm to Classic Era. And then you'll have 3 servers, Skull Rock, DP, Doomhowl. And at some point, maybe they merge the hardcore servers. Honestly. Who still plays on Skull Rock, man? Or maybe offer free transfers from them to one of them. Like, offer free transfers from one server to the other hardcore servers. And then just let it die off. Lightning Season of Discovery. New SOD fresh servers with parentheses, including a hardcore version leading up to the release of Infinite Classic, with a much faster release schedule and easier rune unlocking. I feel like this is a shitpost, but I actually think it could happen. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they have all of the content for SOD, right? It's just in their pocket. And I feel like SOD, by the end of it, was polished, and a lot of the gripes I have with SOD was pacing. I thought that Season of Discovery was boring because you spent 2-3 months at each level phase. I think new SOD with like a 4-month, 5-month timeline would go crazy. Like literally 2 weeks at 25, 2 weeks at 40, 2 weeks at 55 or whatever it was. I think it was 40 and then 50. I think that would be really cool. I do. The reason I'm saying that is the alternative is no content. Would you guys rather have like a SOD fresh server like for fun, or some sort of for fun seasonal thing, or just nothing for a year? Just nothing? You would rather have nothing? Really? Maybe the tech is to kill the game so that people are forced to take a break from Classic, then release Classic Plus when people haven't played it in a while. Don't split your dev team, all hands on Classic Plus. Yeah, I mean, seasonal stuff means no longevity, means gets boring. Yeah, but like at the same time, when I played private servers, there was always the crowd that was like super excited about the next fresh, purely for the new server aspect, not because they're gonna play for 5 years. The next section, Infinite Classic. What do you guys think about the name? It sounds real. It's not Classic Plus. The Infinite Dragonflight that's the Bronze Dragonflight. Named such since it's an alternative timeline influenced by the Infinite Dragonflight. And also since it's a fully realized Classic Plus with new alternative content. Would you guys rather a Classic Plus without old content? Like, let's say a reimagined Classic. There's no Molten Core, there's no BWL, there's no Oni. Or are you looking for a expansion upon the old stuff as well? Old content plus new content or changed content? The plus in Classic Plus means add or not replace. Well, I agree, but this isn't our decision. And you saying Classic Plus doesn't mean that's Blizzard's take on what classic content expansion should be. I do think that they shouldn't scrap things in Classic. I'd be good with not running old raids. I'm kind of at the same point, to be honest. I'm not, like, how do you make Molten Core? Now, what if they made Molten Core different? Like, you guys remember, right? You guys remember with Psalm, how they remade the raids and stuff? They basically just enhanced the content. I would be okay with Psalm style Molten Core. That would help make it interesting. I actually think Psalm is underrated. I say the same. I think Psalm, I agree actually. I think Psalm, people didn't play Psalm because of the timing. They just played an 18-month no life classic. And then 4 to 6 months later, they come out with a new classic server. And it was in the middle of TBC like hype. It was terrible timing. I think there's going to be a massive issue of split player base. There's a ton of casuals that like loot pinatas and fewer that like simple challenge. I don't think it matters. I don't think... well, okay, hear me out. I don't think Blizzard should develop Classic Plus to reward people who want loot pinatas. Or reward people who want a very easy raid. I don't think that should be the design at a fundamental level. New content in between early and end game. Keep the game as a foundation, more end game zones, etc. I kind of agree with that. That's what I want. Leveling has to be hard. I agree, actually. While player base is diverse, there's already tons of people who like different versions. It would work. I think it'd be fine. There needs to be something after Nax. I think Nax could get kind of buffed in the same way that Psalm buffed it, or maybe a little bit different. And Nax could just be the end game. It doesn't have to be... you don't have to have things after Nax, unless you get there and you're like, okay, people still want more stuff, and then you do like a pseudo expansion. ESO style season pass where you need to pay a flat fee on top of subscription to access any content added that year. If the content is over a year old, it's just part of the normal sub fee. I don't think this makes any sense in terms of, has Blizzard done any sort of season pass kind of content? I don't think so. I feel like it makes more sense to just have a purchase price on it in Infinite Classic. I'm hoping that's not the case, to be honest. Next, there is no WoW token planned. I think that's good. They just have to make sure botting doesn't get crazy. 4chan leak posts are almost always creative writing projects. That's why it's fun, dude. Blood Elf race, neutral like Pandaren were in retail. I don't think it's happening. I think that is way too complicated. Blood Elf race, neutral like Pandaren, with a starting zone that splits at level 5 between the factions. Kael'thas joining the Horde, and a resistance group joining the Alliance since they refuse to side with the Orcs and Undead. I don't think this makes sense. I think this is number one. Splitting race, splitting faction at level 5, I think is way too early. That takes 15 minutes to get to level 5, right? Number one, that's off. Something about this is off. Neutral race in general, I think is too complicated. They could just add Blood Elf and then High Elf. It's in the game, right? Like there's High Elf Alliance mobs in World of Warcraft already. So this is, I think that's bullshit. 3 classic-sized Outland zones. Completely alternative Outland. Outland. Guys, do we want Outland? Do you want... This 100% just reads like some random guy's fanfic for Classic Plus. I agree. I don't think there should be Outland. No, I don't think there should be. Actually, you know what? I do think there should be Outland. But, listen to this. My version of Outland is... There is no portal or Hearthstone locations in the Outlands. Period. There's no TP. The only way you get there is through the Dark Portal in Blasted Lands. Okay? And then you have maybe 1 or 2 zones that are endgame content. And you have to walk, no flying, and it's Hellfire Peninsula and Shadowmoon Valley. And they're connected. No flying is crucial. No Nagrand. No, I don't think... So the reason I'm saying this is because in my head, Outlands is the end game. Like, it's almost like a pseudo expansion. Like TBC, the way I want Outland to function is it's an expansion to the world of Eastern Kingdoms, if that makes sense. There's a portal in Blasted Lands that takes you to an alternate world. That doesn't mean that you get to settle on that world. You just get to do zones and stuff. I think that in that world, you could have a couple of zones in Outlands, but I think mostly speaking, I would want that to be the case. I think you can do something like that. Should be an elite endgame zone. That's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like you zone into Outlands and there's like literally a raid boss right in front of you with a bunch of trash mobs in front of it. Like, you know how you zone into the Outlands right now? And you're like, you go into the portal, and then this is the thing you see. This is your portal, right? And there's just fucking demons. All of this is demons, and then there's a huge ass fucking pit lord There's a huge ass pit lord right there sitting in front of you. And they're just fighting. That's a giraffe. This is what Hellfire Peninsula was in Warcraft 3, guys. Do you know this? It was in the game. This was in Hellfire Peninsula. This was in Warcraft 3. Right? So you have this like world, and it should be treated almost like, I think that's how it should work. You come through and it's just like an end game zone. You play through it and you hearth out or you port out when you're done, or you go back to the gate. You don't stay here. You don't set your Hearthstone. You don't have a trainer. You don't have, you know, an herbalist trainer. You don't have a Shatrath. You don't have anything, right? Like Silithus. Yeah, it shouldn't even have a flight path. I agree. It shouldn't have a flight path. There should maybe be like a tent. There's a tent and there's a couple vendors. There could be a rep faction. You could have Draenei factions like this, but you shouldn't be able to say your hearth. You shouldn't be able to fly between them. Where do we enter Outlands? You enter Outlands via, like if you look Outlands map. So this is the Outlands we all know and love. I think all of this shit, all of these flight paths and shit should be gone. You just enter here. This is legit. This is the portal. This is where you start. You cut out all of this bullshit, right? This stuff, maybe have like, you cut this out, to be honest. I don't think any of these matter. Actually, you know what? You could have them, but maybe condense them, right? You make a smaller version of Outlands like this big. You squish in Shadowmoon Valley, you squish in Zangarmarsh, maybe you squish in Blade's Edge. You don't have a city. You squish in only like Coilfang Reservoir so that you have SSC, right? Then you have Black Temple, and then you have Gruul's Lair, right? And then way off in the side, you can just have this fucking Tempest Keep floating right here. It doesn't matter, right? And you'd have to like take a teleporter on the ground to get up to it. You don't want Classic Plus raids to be TBC raids. The thing that I'm saying is more that Outlands could be an endgame expansion sort of content. This like reimagined. I would be okay with a reimagined Black Temple. 100%. That would be fucking sick. A reimagined SSC, like Vash's Lair. It's not called SSC, it's just called Vash's Lair or something. Remake it without flying mount. Yeah, exactly. And you remake it without flying mount and no cities. So that the world isn't set. The problem with Outlands, my problem with Outlands is that this world replaces Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, right? It just replaces them. So you go from having 40 zones or whatever to down to like 6 zones, right? So if you're gonna have some sort of Outland, some sort of expansion, something like even this could extend to like Northrend, right? You could add Northrend in Classic Plus, and you could add something like ICC or reimagined, like you know in Warcraft 3 they had ICC, or they had Northrend, and it was much smaller. It was desolate. It was pretty much just like ice. It was just like ice. That's all it was, right? So you could reimagine like Northrend as like one zone, and then you take a boat to get there. There's a small town with a pier, and then you could take a boat back. But there's no Hearthstone, there's no Dalaran, there's no fucking teleport. It's not replacing all of your world. You don't have daily hubs to do in every zone. It's not a whole encompassing world. It should be like an ice, yeah, exactly. It should be like an ice desolate zone that you can go to get to the raid or a world boss or whatever content. Like that's what it should be, right? You don't need Sholazar Basin, and you don't need Borean Tundra. Like, who cares about this shit, man? Like, actually, Howling Fjord was kind of cool, but it doesn't fit, in my opinion, as what Northrend should be. I think Northrend should be ice, ghouls, and, like, zombies and shit. So I think that's the problem. I think that the main thing, like, you could add, it would be amazing. Honestly, I would be so happy with a Classic Plus, just a classic world that had a reimagined Outland that doesn't replace the old world, right? So when you come back from Black Temple, you're going to Stormwind. You're in Orgrimmar. And then your raid, your 25, whatever, 40-man raid takes a boat, flies to Blasted Lands, takes the portal, enters Black Temple. Like that's the process to get there every time. It's not, you don't port to Shatrath, walk to the summoning stone, summon your raid because everybody's chilling in Shatrath, and then you zone in. I think that's kind of how it has to be, because that's how the rest of the raids are in Classic, and they work really well, I think. I think having to mobilize your whole raid to Silithus and then like get there, do it. There's no teleport Silithus unless you're playing on a mega server and summons are banned. I actually think that it's very important if you are going to do something like this. Now that I'm thinking about it, you can't summon unless they're unless people are in the zone. You can't summon across worlds, because that would stop summon bots from teleporting you from Orgrimmar to Black Temple, something like this. I think that's very important if they're going to do like a world as well with this idea. Summon to portal. Well, summon to portal, but if it's a PvP zone, Blasted Lands is a PvP zone. So what, you're summoning to the portal? I think that's fine. It would work for Northrend though? Yeah, not really. I mean, you would make it the same. You can just summon to north, like deep north or something. Summon bots where you get summoned to the edge of each zone and then take a new summon. Yeah. Okay. So that's my take on Outlands. Do you think it's hard to just keep Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and an update would be like a couple of pirate ghost ships in X location featuring a new raid and dungeon or something? I think that realistically speaking, it's not hard, but the world fills up quickly when you do stuff like that. Like in my head, map of Kalimdor. So Kalimdor, for me, there's a couple zones easily. Hyjal here. So you have Hyjal, right? These are zones that are like underdeveloped in my opinion for like a Classic Plus. You could do Hyjal. You could develop a little bit more Moonglade. You could develop Azshara a little bit more. And then outside of that, like I don't think there's much room to develop. And then Eastern Kingdoms. Oh, you're right, Uldum. Yeah, you're right, actually, Uldum. Down here, you have Uldum. Silithus a bit more? I hate Silithus. There's enough in there already. I don't think Silithus is underdeveloped with AQ patch. Desolace is huge potential? I don't think so. I think Desolace is actually very well developed. Now, it's not huge, but I think that's fine. It's a leveling zone, you know? Ghostlands, reimagined Ghostlands and Isle of Keldanos are very low-hanging fruit, especially if they add something like, you know, if they have something like that, Gilneas, if they have Blood Elves or High Elves, this is a super low-hanging fruit for them. The lore is there. The zones have already been made in TBC. They just can like rework them a little bit and you know, make the bug tunnels connected. Moving from 1k needles to Silithus through the tunnels. I actually kind of think that would be sick. If you could connect from Feralis to Silithus like this, but there's level 60 mobs at the end of the tunnel. That's actually I think that's a good cook. And then same thing, you could connect Regal to this hive here. Now, I'm not sure it would be used. Who uses that? To be honest, no idea. But it's just there. Why not, right? The Furbog tunnels. Yep. You could connect Furbog tunnels here, and there could be a whole underground thing, or maybe connect it to Hyjal, right? Like maybe there's two connections, 1 point here, 1 point here. That could be cool. That's Hyjal. That's Hyjal integration with like the, you know, maybe you get there from Winter Spring. Okay, and then to Eastern Kingdoms. I think Eastern Kingdoms is very easy, very low-hanging fruit. Grim Batol, and possibly a zone like this off of Grim Batol, like a dragon zone. There's this like zone here is completely not even used. It's on the map. There's nothing there. In between Swamp of Sorrows and Blasted Lands. Nobody's been there. There's nothing there. It's just rock. It's just a mountain. So this is like some sort of, they'd have to be creative. Same with right above Stormwind. Yep. In between Stormwind and Ironforge, nothing's here. There's some Dun Moreau stuff, but actually I don't think the only thing there could be developed is like up here, because there's actually in Dun Moreau right here, this is like RP, and there's places that are supposed to be not reachable that you see are like, oh shit. Deadwind Pass. Obviously, this is one that like they did rework in TBC with Karazhan. I think they do that easily. You just add some form of Karazhan to the Classic Plus, and then I think you expand. If you do all this stuff right, then you do Outlands. Like I say, you have Outlands come out, or you have to make sure that all of this stays relevant when you do that. Or you could even have in the Gilneas like an extension part of these zones, right? Like let's say Gilneas has a boat, and from Gilneas you can get to Northrend. And it's just ice. It's just one zone. It's just one zone, and it's ice. It's Ice Crown, and it's just Ice Crown. In front of it is Dragon. Maybe it's two zones. It's Ice Crown and then Dragon Blight, and that's all there is. There's no bullshit. There's nothing else. And then you have like maybe like a faction zone here, and then like a raid zone. This being Dragon Blight, and then this being ICC. Something like this, right? This is like, as long as they don't add Dalaran and they don't add a portal and you can't hearth there and you can't summon from here, like I think that integrates the new content with the old world, and people are still going back to the auction house in Ironforge, and they're going back to the auction house in Stormwind, and they're still walking through these zones to get here, right? You have to fly around, you fly, you see these people flying like this all the way up, you see these trains of people, like it keeps this part of the world alive and stuff. Why not draw on Warcraft 3? Warcraft 3 Northrend map. Yeah, I mean, this is like, you get here, you have the base camp, there's Nerubian shit, there's a portal. Like, this is Dagger. This is, dude, I scuffed this. I think this is in Dragon Blight. Yeah, where the burn ships are? Yeah, pretty much. Hot take and a way to deal with balance complaints. Would allowing races to join either faction as a mercenary, maybe some sort of drawback, be a good idea? I think that only works for lore-wise neutral characters. I think a goblin is an example, but in order to make that work in a classic world, I think you have to develop it more. I think you have to develop goblins a little bit more and build up their mercenary side. Right now in classic, they are really neutral, right? You have the goblins, you have an STV, Ratchet, Gadget Sand, like there's a good amount of goblins that are neutral in the game, but there's nowhere for them to start. So like, how do you start a goblin in Classic Plus? Do you add Kazan? That's the question, right? So like, or is it like, you just start, you just start as a high level character and like, almost like a Death Knight, right? You start at like 58 and you can unlock this by doing something. And you just choose whether you go Horde or Alliance as sort of a mercenary, right? You could skip the starter. They don't have to be level 1. You could kind of be, don't make it easy for the bots. Well, yeah, you'd have to have like some requirement that's locked behind content that's actually hard. Like to the point that you have to be stronger than the character you get. Goblin is Horde, what the fuck are you talking about? It's very much not Horde. The only reason Goblin is Horde is because they didn't want to do a neutral faction. Where are the Alliance Zeppelins? The Alliance don't need Zeppelins because they built boats. The Horde needed to commission Zeppelins from the neutral goblins. I don't want goblins at all. Is that a hot take? Leave them as neutral NPCs in the end? I think it would be okay to have some sort of neutral race in the game. But I think that there would have to be some way where they can only group with like one side. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Would you guys rather have goblins or pandas? Quick poll in the chat. Goblins? Okay, no, that's a loaded question. Obviously goblins win that. Pandas gotta go. Neither. Okay, let's say there's a couple races that are like low-hanging fruit. Goblin is actually the easiest one in Classic. This is like a neutral faction. But you have Goblin, which is neutral. You've got Nagas, which are neutral, probably leaning Horde. Or actually, I mean, maybe they're leaning Ally for Night Elves. In Warcraft 3, Didn't like Illidan and like Vash kind of like talk and shit? Like maybe there's some sort of yeah, I don't know. So you've got Nagas. I think High Elf. You have Blood Elf. What else am I missing, guys? Is that it? Like so with that being said, Murloc Ogre, I don't think Ogre makes sense in the same way I don't think Murloc or Naga makes sense. I think of all of the classes, Naga, Murloc, Ogre, these don't make sense because they're too monstrous. Give a Legion faction. What about Centaurs? Oh. Anyways, I think that all of these classes, I think Ogre, you could say Centaur, you could say Quillbore, Satyr, all these things, right? These are monsters. These aren't like humanoids, really. Where's the Murloc city in the game? You would have to add one. Like, of all these things, High Elves have... There's like actual lore and stuff built behind these societies of High Elves and whatever existing. Same thing with Goblins. I think Gilnean, like Worgen. I think Worgen... Yeah, Worgen, I don't know. I don't want Worgen. So with that being said, if these are the options, right? You have more elf options and then goblin. What if you had sub races? Like what are they called in retail, guys? Where you have like Dark Iron Dwarf. What if you just had something like that as the Classic Plus instead of making new races, make more options for the existing races? Something like more elf sub race, more like elf or dwarf, or maybe, right, something like orc sub races. I think like you could have like more demonic orcs kind of shit, and this could come with like an Outlands rework, something like this, and that would be sick. Like a fell orc, yeah, kind of like the red orc, chaos orcs, yeah, exactly, stuff like that, right? From Blood Furnace, exactly, right? So, or like Maghar, right? So like demonic or Maghar, stuff like this. To be able to choose what kind of orc, yeah, that would be sick, right? Being able to choose like a Maghar orc or like a fell orc or something. Fell orc wouldn't fit horde. What is the type of orc? What is the orc lore again, guys? They like drink from the blood. What color are they? You know what I mean? They drink the demon blood, then what? In Warcraft 3, they become red. That's what I'm saying. So like the red orc. Why not? Grom is redeemed after turning red. See? That's what I'm saying. Red orc didn't drink. Oh, so like non-drinky orcs. Red orc drank twice. No, they rotated back. They canceled it out. Brown, green, red. Oh. Oh, wait. So you go from brown to green to red if you drink each? No, they went green to red from second drink and then stopped being... Brown not drink, green drink, red drink twice. Is that real? Wait, is that actually how it works? It is. You know what? I think that should be in. No, I like this idea. Honestly, fuck Blood Elf. But you actually know what? No. I want Blood Elves. I want High Elf, Blood Elf, to be honest. In my Classic Plus, at least High Elf. But I think allied races is a very easy way to expand the new races without adding in monster type, like, you know, you've got Worgen and Draenei like aliens, and then you've got like Nagas or ogres. You know, I think that keeping it more humanoid could be cool. Orcs are also aliens. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but like, look at this freak, right? Like alien, but like actually like... What is this, by the way? What is this face? Like, yeah, I don't want this guy in my Classic Plus. I don't. I'm sorry. I'd rather have... Let's look at it. Orc male. Orc male side by side to a Draenei male here, guys. Look, which one is your version of Classic Plus, guys? Wait, no. Red Orc. This guy or this guy? Who do you guys want? Like, to be honest, dude, this guy's such a freak. I don't want Draenei in my game. I don't want Draenei. I'd rather have a Red Orc tattooed fucking freak Blade Master. Like, look at this, dude. I don't like Draenei. I don't. Consortium faction. It doesn't work in Classic because where are they? They're out in the Outlands doing shit. Anyways, the league, back to the league. What were we at? 3 classic-sized Outland zones, completely alternative. The starting zone, neutral zone. This is dumb. Uldum, Ruins of Kael'thas, and a new Draconoid-themed zone also at launch. Honestly, I think of all the zones, this is the easiest. Okay? This Blood Elf zone. To be honest, I think these are the most sensible ones. You have Kael'thas, and you have Grimbatol. I think in order, you also have Hyjal. Of all the zones, I think these are the first to be added. Some sort of Blood Elf area, even if Blood Elves aren't playable, you could have them be like bad. Or like you could be going in here with the intent of killing all Blood Elves, and like you only add High Elves to the game, and then maybe you add something for Horde. I don't see the purpose of adding Hyjal. It's just an expansion of the game, right? Hyjal could just be a raid. It could be a reimagined like tier 6 raid. You know, T6 Hyjal exists. It could just be a raid. It doesn't have to be the wave bullshit. Or Hyjal could be an endgame zone. I mean, it's off Winterspring, so it's already in the location. I also think this is very easy to develop. Deadwind Pass for Karazhan. Some sort of Karazhan. Very easy, very low hanging fruit. And then here you have Hyjal. And then possibly Uldum. Of all of these zones, guys, let's do a poll. What zone would you want the most? Kael'thas, Grimbatol, Deadwind Pass, Rework, Hyjal, or Uldum, or like enhanced. All right, chat, vote up. No one wants Uldum. Oh man. Oh, it's pretty split. Does Deadwind mean it's not TBC version, like reworked? Pretty much, in my head, Deadwind Pass enhanced means like adding Karazhan and then maybe adding something like Karazhan Crypts. But I don't know, right? Like there's, Deadwind Pass is definitely a smaller zone, so it makes sense to not really be a top choice here. I liked Uldum and Kata, looked cool. Yeah, so pretty split. Hyjal being the top here. You guys almost 50-50'd it. So we've got Hyjal as honestly, this is pretty nice. I think Hyjal is really cool too. And Hyjal is a zone that's already made. Like they have the world tree, they have this big tree, they have the corpse of like Archimonde. Like they could easily develop Hyjal. It's like low hanging fruit. Hyjal isn't small. Hyjal is huge. This is Hyjal, by the way. It's like the same size as like think about this. It's the same size as all of Desolace. It's very big. Same thing with Kael'thas. I think some sort of Blood Elf zone is huge, right? There's so much room for it. In the world, there's so much room for it. On top of the fact that, like, there's already been a lot of work done in TBC specifically with, like, making Eversong Woods and Ghostlands. I think you could kind of condense it and you could make Kael'thas almost like a Sunwell-esque raid or like an Isle of Kael'thas. Instead of being an island in TBC, you could just have it be a zone off of like Eastern Plaguelands. Can we do, then we could do Karazhan, Hyjal, then Karazhan. The thing is, like, I think if they add content that's been in the game before, it has to be alternative. So it's an alt Kara, right? It's an alternative Karazhan. It would be like, what about something new, question mark? You have to think about this, okay? They can add stuff that's new, right? But at some point, the lowest hanging fruit is pre-developed content. There's a reason that Karazhan existed where it did, the way that it did in TBC. It was good. Karazhan was a good place, a good location. It made people come back to the old world, use a zone that nobody really was in, incentivize it. I think Karazhan of all things, especially, and Hyjal, fit in the game. Now, Hyjal doesn't have to be a boring 8 waves into boss, 8 waves into boss, like Warcraft 3 style encounter. It could just be a raid zone. There's things like Karazhan, which the tower is in Classic, right? Use Nax. Yeah, like there's a staff in Classic that teleports you to Karazhan. This is so easy. This is so similar. Like it's in the world. It's not gonna be a lot of work for them. They don't have to develop a zone. All they have to do is make the raid, right? So if you think about it like that, it makes sense for them to do something like Karazhan, right? Same thing with Hyjal. There's a raid portal. There's a zone on the map. There's room for it. There's already architecture built around Hyjal in the lore, right? Like finish it off. Same thing, Gilneas, finish it off. Enhance Grim Batol. There's things in the world, and I think the first thing that they should do before just willy-nilly adding a zone called fucking Barathi Bylands, like, would you rather them make a new zone entirely that you guys are like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? Like, just develop what's there, man. So like, it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you do a Karazhan? Why wouldn't you develop a Kel'Thalas? Classic Plus will probably be all the stuff Blizz wanted to do in original vanilla but never did, like Naga raids, PvP, Battleground and Najara, BRD raid, Mara raid. There's so much stuff in Classic WoW that never got finished. Shilithus, for example, Giant Guardian in Uldum. Okay, I'm gonna stop and say I think a lot of those things didn't enter the game because they were replaced with other things that are currently in Classic. The BRD raid, it's just BRD. You just do BRD. It's just, they just tuned it down to be a 5-man instead of a 10-man probably. I don't know. Maradon, I don't think there should be a Mara raid. I think that it's fine. I think that Mara, BRD, of all things, don't need to be developed really. I think Naga race is possible, but I don't think it's likely. In my Classic Plus, my version of Classic Plus, I don't think Naga is in. Problem with that line of thought is that no one from that time of Blizzard is still there. So why would they care to go in those directions for that reason at least? Why would you choose to go to Karazhan in a Classic Plus? The reason is it's in the game, okay? They don't have to make a tower and design it and art and it's in the game. Why wouldn't they do it? There's a huge fucking wall right here at the edge of Silverpine. Break it open, show what's inside. It's in the game, right? There's a lead in the game that they can develop. That's why. It's not because some guy 20 years ago at Blizzard was like taking notes about Karazhan. They meant to do this 25 years ago. Oh yeah, I mean, the thing is, they meant to do this 25 years ago were ideas that were scrapped or redesigned, and they probably all ended up in the game in some way or another. Like if you think about, you know, there's so many, they've done so much in WoW. They've added Vash, or they've added like the undergrounds, the underwater zone. They added fucking Pandaria. They added Kazan. They added, there's so much shit. It's all over the place, right? They added fucking Draenei zones randomly, an island of Draenei, by the way, that crashed into the fucking, like, I don't know. There's so many, it's a world of island craft. They could develop Caverns of Time. Honestly, I don't think it's good. I fundamentally don't like the idea of Caverns of Time. This is not in my Classic Plus. I don't like the idea of a cavern existing with portals that magically take you back in time. You know, if anything, you fight some dude in the Caverns of Time, you put a world boss, a big ass dragon. My versions of Caverns of Time is, there's a cavern, right? And you're going in because this guy is trying to fuck with the time, and you go kill him, right? That's my Caverns of Time. No time traveling. He's trying to time travel. He's trying to introduce like this like bullshit, right? No, you go kill him. You go kill the bronze dragon. That's my Caverns of Time. You don't need to add these portals and escape from Durnhold, Black Morass kind of shit, like origin stories. Like, it just shouldn't be there, in my opinion. Time traveling is just a cheap, lazy way to storytell. I kind of agree. You know, there were actual leaks. There is actual leaks. I think all of this and up is real. I do. Except Yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea, I think, of, I don't know. I'm torn with this lightning season of Discovery. I think everything up is real. SOD 2 is very funny. I think an accelerated SOD with everything already figured out for them is very easy. With that being said, though, this is definitely questionable. This part is questionable. I think this is probably real. I think Infinite Classic announcement at BlizzCon 2020. I think this is real. I think there could be a hardcore version. This doesn't make any sense for priests. Why did they say that? That doesn't make any sense. Maybe something like this. New Spellblade class is questionable. This doesn't make sense. 3 new dungeons, probably true. Uldum, something like this. These zones sound kind of good. Very possible. And then I think all of this shit, this seems possible. All of this, I think is fan fiction. All of this is fan fiction, bro. No WoD? No WoD. But I think this top stuff is actually very true. If I had to guess, what is true? All of this at the top here. This stuff is true. I think this is probably true with the exception of maybe TBC Hardcore. I think new class being Spellblade. What do you guys think? What is a Spellblade? A male wearer. Of all classes, the least developed is male. So if you think plate, mail, leather, cloth archetypes, you've got 2 plate classes, 2, but only 1 on ally for male. And then with leather, you've got 2, and with cloth, you have 4. Maybe it's 3, I don't remember, 3 or 4. I can't think. 1 plate on Horde. Yeah, 1 plate on Horde. This guy from Warcraft 3. I mean, if they add Blood Elves, Spellbreaker, Spellblade. Okay, let's poll it. Let's poll it, chat. Is it real? Is it real? Spellblade class. Real or fake? What do you guys think? Let's see it. Vote it up. Vote it up. Vote it up. Oh my god, you guys are... Look, I'm just saying, these 6 people are insiders. They must be. Okay, 90% fake. I kind of agree. I think it's fake. I like the sound of a Spellblade class, which is why I think it's fake. Okay, well, if it's not Spellblade, do you think they're going to add a new class to Classic? No. I think there's too much going on with the classes that they have already. They need to balance. They need to, like, fix before even thinking about adding a new class. There's a lot of things. Healing Mage and SOD was really cool. I'm going to be honest. Okay, if there's a healing spec for Mage, I will quit Classic Plus. There needs to be class... No. It needs to have the classic, you know, you are a DPS, you are a hybrid, you are a tank, or you are a healer. You have to have that sort of identity, role identity, where a rogue isn't a healer. Where a warrior isn't a healer. A mage isn't a healer. In the same way that a priest isn't a tank. And a warlock is not a tank. Okay? They're not. I don't want to see rogue tank. I don't want to see warlock tank. I don't want to see mage healer. I don't. None of them. But I think that they should... I think that they should develop Rot Paladin and Shaman tanking. And then Feral tanking. I think that having 3 tank options on each faction, Rot Paladin, Rot Warrior, and then Feral Druid for Alliance, and then on Horde you've got Prot Warrior, Shaman, and then Feral on Horde, right? And so I think that that's something that, like, maybe they could develop. But, big but, Shaman cannot be SOD Shaman. I think that the Shaman tank has to be, like, not a whole spec. You can't, I don't think you can, like, you can add in You're okay with Shaman tank, but not okay with Warlock? Okay then. Why am I okay with this? I think Warlock tanking actually does make sense, but only on caster mobs, because you do have Warlock tank in Classic and TBC. But Shamans do have the same, and they don't tank, right? Shamans have shield, they have high threat modifiers on spells, but they never really saw tanking, right? And they have like block value and stuff like on talents. I think that I'm okay to give Shaman some sort of tank capability in terms of balancing it with prop paladins in a fundamental sense. If you're gonna buff prop paladin, I think you need to have some sort of benefit for horde. Sod Shaman tank was way too over the top. I kind of agree. I don't want Sod Shaman. I don't want Shaman to be a prop paladin. I think Shaman should have some sort of niche. You have Paladin tank in Classic, right? If you have Paladin tank that's really good, then that means people will be like, wait, Paladin's insane, let's play Alliance. I don't think you want to have that sort of imbalance. So they either need to do two things. Either they add a Shaman tank counterpart, or they add some other benefit for Horde, like Lust. Maybe you add Lust to Horde. And the difference between, you could have a stronger tank class, but then you have some other big bonus from Shaman on Horde. Wind Fury's already there. Wind Fury isn't enough for them to have a fully fleshed out tank, AoE tank. It depends if Alliance get Wild Strikes. No. Alliance should not get Wind Fury. Not everything needs balance. That's not true. That's not true. Both races should be relatively close together in terms of capability, because they're designing the game around difficulty for the lowest faction. So if you have a really strong faction and a really weak faction, and you want both factions to be able to clear, you're making content easy for one faction and hard for the other. That doesn't make any sense. There needs to be some level of balance, but there doesn't need to be a level of homogeneity. Is that a word? Factions don't have to be homogenized for them to be relatively balanced. For example, let's say that you don't have a counterpart for Prop Paladin, and Prop Paladin is really strong. So how does Horde compensate? Let's say the way that they compensate is by Shamans being stronger for the raid buff situation, right? So like, let's say there's a fight that comes out and Shaman, or like Prop Paladin is like insane. Prop Paladin basically lets you one tank a fight instead of 3 tank it. So the difference for Alliance initially is that they gain 2 more DPS classes. How do you overcome that? Busted class versus busted abilities? Well, let's say it's like TBC Paladin. Let's say they add TBC Paladin to Classic and it's insane. It has infinite mana. It's tanky with great AoE threat and good damage. I don't think an extra buff is not going to have a similar pull on player count like having a dope tank class. I think if you had something like Lust, think about it. If you had Lust on Shaman, people will play Horde because of Lust. And if this in the same coin, if you have Lust on Horde and you have Pally tank on Alliance, right? People will play Alliance because they want to play a Paladin, and they're okay with Horde having Lust. And people will be like, oh, I want Lust more than Paladin. I think that's okay. Let's say you have Prop Paladins doing well. Then you say, okay, well, we kind of want to buff Shaman a little bit. Let's add Lust. In TBC, Lust was a party buff for 30% haste for 40 seconds, something like that, roughly speaking, right? So big attack speed, big cast speed buff. Now, I think it should remain party based. You should not have one Shaman in the raid be able to press Lust for everybody. And I think if you are going to have Lust, I think full party might be too strong. I think maybe go down the line of giving Shaman individual Lust, almost like Hysteria, right? Like a Warcraft 3 Bloodlust, like PI but on a lower cooldown. Think PI but on like a minute cooldown, or maybe that's too strong. That might break PvP. Power Infusion for melee. Exactly. I think a Power Infusion for melee would be cool in that regard. PI is one target for shorter length for less haste. Yeah. I think PI, well, no, I think it should mirror PI. I think Shaman Lust, if they were to add Lust in Classic Plus and they weren't adding Shamans to Alliance, I think it should be Warcraft 3 style. You have Warcraft 3 style Bloodlust. Warcraft 3. This is what it is. This is Bloodlust in Warcraft 3, which is a really strong buff. Increases friendly units' attack rate and movement speed by 25%, 40% and 25%. With a 1 second cooldown. Obviously, this is fucking broken. 8 seconds here, 8 seconds here. But it wouldn't be like this. This was in Classic. It's an individual buff. Or this was in Warcraft 3. I think if you do something like this, where you basically say like 15-second PI-esque melee buff, where you have like, say 25% attack speed bonus for 15 seconds on like a 2-minute CD. Right? Something like this. And you can mirror PI in that regard. And this would make Shamans stronger than they already are. It's something only Horde would get, and it would help balance out the fact that maybe Alliance get like a prop paladin. And then you scrap the Shaman tank idea and you just go with 2 tanks. And you make Feral stronger as well, so that you have more than 1 tank on each side. It's not just warriors on Horde and then prop paladins and warriors on Alliance. That's a balancing nightmare. I think it's fun. It's just fun, man. Fuck balance. Dude, you know what? Who cares? Who cares about balancing? Dude, just let the people press Lust on somebody. Like PI, it's not a... who cares? They do good damage for 15 seconds? Cool. I think I'd rather just have Shamans and Paladins on both sides. I kind of like the idea of factions being different. I think it's more fun raid-wide than on one person. But then it's broken. Okay, so the problem is, you can't have raid-wide Lust. That's completely unbalanced. It's way too strong. If you add raid-wide Lust on Horde, then you need to give raid-wide Lust to Alliance. If you add single-person Bloodlust, you don't need to add it to Alliance. And then you have differences between the factions. And you have more than 1 Shaman. You have to remember, you're not playing 1 Shaman in a 40-man raid. You have 5 to 8 Shamans in a 40-man. So 5 to 8 people are getting bloodlusted. That's a lot of people. Like, that's a lot of your melee stack is going to get bloodlusted. Unparsable, parse for Alliance? Fuck parsing. To be honest, dude, imagine the whining who gets lust. That's perfect. That's so classic. You can't design a game because Alliance are going to get unhappy because people on Horde will out DPS them. Boo fucking who? Who cares, man? I don't care. I don't care. Nobody cares. I don't give a fuck, man. Make the game fun. You care? Okay, log off. I'm Alliance, I want to parse. You should just parse against your fucking your faction. Who cares what Horde are doing? Yo, but Prop Paladin is not just a tank, it gives might and wisdom. Okay, I don't know what you're saying. You get enough paladins. You get enough paladins in most raids just from healers to have all the blessings. Bro, Alliance would have blessings, a better tank. Okay, I don't know. Is this just Alliance? Is that Horde copium? Alliance have blessings. You forgot to say Horde have totems. They have a better tank. Who cares if 5 of my melee are doing 2k DPS on pull? Who cares, right? I think it would be fun. Prop Paladin should not be a better tank. Prop Paladin should not be a better tank. It should be a nicher tank. You shouldn't just play Prop Paladin as your de facto go-to tank. What faction would you choose? I would play both. They should be able to AoE tank and that's it. Right, that's exactly right. I think that, well, I don't think they should only be able to AoE tank. I think they should do single target threat, but not out threat a warrior. If Horde gets lust, I'm never logging into Alliance. I would play both, because I would want to play Prop Paladin, I think, and I would want to play Horde. Why even have Alliance and Horde do one single side? I think I would get hate, but oh well. I think that doesn't make sense in the term of PvP servers. Like, I think PvP is a really big aspect of the game. If you want to parse play retail, that's an actual challenge. Caring about parsing the classic is ultra crit. I kind of agree. I think that there's a difference between like trying to improve week to week or whatever and like whatever, but I think actually like fundamentally caring about Classic Plus changing how parsing works is brain dead. You'd actually like it if one faction was better than the other. One side would get to feel overpowered, and then the other would feel like the cool underdogs. But I'm an OSRS player. That's funny. I mean, that's kind of how it is right now. Horde is slightly weaker than Alliance in terms of rating, I would say. I would say Horde is slightly weaker. I think Horde might be on par with Ally, but they're way harder to play to full effect. Yeah, and also the people that play Horde statistically are zugzugs. Like, something happens when you play Horde and you get Wind Fury and it's on your character. You have the Wind Fury buff. I'm pretty sure you lose at least 50 IQ points. It's very real. I've played it. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand why, but it's true. Like, you're a melee player, you get Wind Fury, minus 50. That's not a joke. It's very real. And that's why Horde are weaker. Because, right, technically speaking, if your tank can hold threat, and your shamans can heal the raid, your raid should do more damage than an Alliance raid. But the problem is it's more bloody, because people don't have the self-control to not kill themselves on Horde. That's all it is. Yeah. Feels very Horde appropriate. Yeah. Lore accurate Horde. Exactly. No, that's exactly what it is, bro. So yeah, that's kind of my Classic Plus. That's a review of the leaks. We don't know how real they are. The Classic Plus leaks. To recap, probably no WoD. This is what they say. This is probably no WoD. TBC soon. TBC Hardcore, possibly. If this is a real leak, TBC Hardcore could be in. This 4chan guy is reliable. You guys think so? Okay, you know what? Let's actually do this. We're gonna do one final poll here. Chat. /poll. Is this a real leak? Now, this doesn't mean that everything in this is true. But do you think this is a person with insider knowledge? Or is this fully fan fiction? Yes or no? What a poll. Let's finish it off, boys. Is this a real leak? Can we get a 60-40 option? Like, come on, it's not all true. I'm not saying, if you're saying yes in this, that's not to say that everything is true. It's just that this guy was a real leak. If any of it is true, as from an insider perspective, that would be a yes. My dad works for 4chan, it's all real. Really? People saying this leak is real are coping so hard. Some stuff like release dates have partial truth, but that's about it. I think release date is very likely. I think we will probably know by BlizzCon. It's basically guaranteed to not all be true. This is just what the one guy knows right now, and things change before it comes out. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Okay, chat, that was our leak review. It was fun. I had a lot of fun talking about Classic Plus, bro. I could talk about Classic Plus every day for the next like 2 years. I could do it.